When you close the door and your dog hears your footsteps fade away, something shifts inside their mind, not in panic at first, but in awareness, because dogs understand routines far better than we realize. And the moment you reach for your keys, put on your shoes, or change your posture, their brain begins predicting what comes next, activating memory, emotion, and attachment all at once. And while we often assume dogs only react in the moment, the truth is that a dog's mind is deeply shaped by anticipation, association, and emotional memory, meaning your departure is not just an event, it is a story their brain has learned to expect, replay, and emotionally process. Inside a dog's brain, the strongest response to your presence and absence is driven by attachment chemistry, particularly oxytocin, the same bonding hormone responsible for mother-child connection in humans. And when you are near, a dog's oxytocin levels rise, creating feelings of safety, calm, and emotional regulation. But when you leave, those levels drop, not dramatically for every dog, but noticeably enough for the brain to register a loss of emotional grounding. And this is why some dogs follow you from room to room or watch the door after you leave, because your presence has become part of how their nervous system stays balanced. For many dogs, the first phase after you leave is waiting, not despair, but hope. Because dogs perceive time differently than humans do, living less by clocks and more by patterns. So when you leave, their brain expects your return the same way it has learned to expect meals, walks, and bedtime. And this expectation keeps their mind alert, listening for familiar sounds, footsteps, or vibrations, which is why many dogs position themselves near doors, windows, or places where your scent lingers the strongest, because scent is memory to a dog, and your smell tells their brain that you are still close, still real, still coming back. As time passes, the dog's mind begins shifting from anticipation into regulation, and what happens next depends heavily on the dog's past experiences, temperament, and emotional security. Because dogs who have been left before and safely reunited learn something powerful at a neurological level, that absence is temporary and return is reliable. And this learning shapes a dog's emotional response far more than obedience training ever could, creating emotional resilience that allows them to relax, nap, or engage in self-soothing behaviors while waiting. However, for dogs with separation anxiety or unresolved trauma, the mind reacts differently. Because when a dog has experienced abandonment, instability, or unpredictable returns, the brain struggles to trust the pattern. And instead of waiting calmly, it enters a heightened survival state, releasing stress hormones like cortisol, increasing heart rate, restlessness, vocalization, pacing, or destructive behavior, not out of spite or misbehavior, but because the dog's mind is attempting to regain control in a moment that feels emotionally unsafe. One of the most misunderstood truths about dogs is that they do not experience loneliness the same way humans do, but they do experience emotional absence, meaning they don't sit and think, "I miss you," in words, but their brain does register a missing emotional anchor, because dogs evolved to live in cooperative groups, where separation often meant danger. So your departure triggers an ancient instinct that asks one simple question: am I still safe? And when the dog has learned that you always return, that question is eventually answered with calm acceptance rather than fear. During longer absences, many dogs enter a low-energy state, sleeping far more than when humans are home, not because they are depressed, but because without social stimulation, their brain conserves energy, and sleep becomes a way to pass time without distress. And interestingly, dogs often sleep more deeply when alone, especially if they associate solitude with calm rather than anxiety, showing that a secure dog does not suffer constantly in your absence, but adapts to it in a quiet, efficient way. What's happening beneath all of this is memory processing, because dogs have strong associative memory, meaning they remember how long you were usually gone, what happens when you return, and how departures end. And these memories shape their emotional response more than the present moment, which is why dogs often become excited shortly before you arrive home, sensing subtle environmental cues like changes in light, sound patterns, or internal routines tied to past experiences, creating that magical moment where your dog seems to know you're coming before you even touch the door. When you finally return, a dog's brain releases a surge of dopamine and oxytocin, reinforcing the emotional lesson that separation ended safely, strengthening the bond, and teaching the brain once again that waiting was worth it, which is why greetings are often intense, joyful, and emotional, not because the dog was suffering every second, but because reunion activates the deepest reward systems in their mind, reaffirming connection, safety, and belonging all at once. Perhaps the most beautiful part of what happens inside a dog's mind when you leave is this: dogs do not measure love by time spent together, but by trust in return. And a dog that waits calmly, sleeps peacefully, or greets you with joy has learned something extraordinary: that absence does not mean loss, and separation does not mean abandonment. And this emotional learning is not automatic. It is built through consistency, patience, and repeated proof that you always come back. In the end, when you leave, your dog is not counting minutes or resenting your absence, but navigating a quiet emotional landscape shaped by memory, instinct, and trust. And every safe return strengthens that inner world, teaching their mind that even when the door closes, the bond remains, unbroken, waiting, and certain.